It's been yet another exciting day in Spilimbergo in Italy, where Levy Rozman, aka GothamChess, has attempted to give it another try to get his very first GM norm. And I'm going to provide you my insights as his coach. So we're going to start with the second round, which was the first game of the two today. I could not really do it earlier, right after the game, because I had to help Levy with some of the prep to prepare for the next game. So I'm recording this recap after rounds 2 and 3 are finished. I already know what happened in the next round as well. But we're going to start with this game. So Levy's opponent was Anaki Arturs Verdezato, the second player in the women team in Ecuador. So d4 knight f6, this was part of the prep. Levy was choosing to play either d5 e6. He was considering also to play some sort of a Queen's Gambit accepted. But in the end we decided that most likely Arturs is going to play e4, e6, knight c3, d5 for some sort of Caspet structure, because we noticed that she really likes to go for those simple positions, and there was a surprise prepared for the opponent. It didn't happen because Arturs played knight f3. Now d5 is a perfectly logical move, and after knight c3, this was part of the prep. The idea is to play bishop b4 quite early, then think about ideas like c5 and queen a5, so the game is pretty interesting. C takes on d5, this was not a surprise, because before the game I told to Levy that there's a 90% chance that Anai is going to include the trade quite early, so probably she's quite afraid of d takes on c4 ideas that might arise. So c takes on d5, relieving some tension from the center, it made perfect sense. E takes on d5, bishop g5, now this is a threat. Bishop b4 is played, and after e3, c5, here Levy got immediately the position he wanted. He was playing very quickly, confidently. The idea is to play queen a5 and knight e4, applying some pressure on the knight on c3 and also on the bishop on g5. Bishop takes on f6, though this is a move I think that surprised Levy. So he stopped here for a while, and he decided to respond with knight f6 after almost a 10-minute think. But I think also queen f6 made quite a bit sense, with the idea that he's going to meet some future ideas like c4, maybe b5 and bishop b7, and queen on f6 is maybe not so badly positioned. Because white's going to take on c5, there's going to be bishop takes on c3 and queen c3, and white has difficulties to respond to this move, because queen e2 always drops the rook on a1. So it didn't happen. Levy played knight f6, bishop b5 check, and now probably one of the most creative moves that delayed Bongcloud, king e7. Yeah, it was actually quite incredible thought process from Levy, because initially I thought that he's definitely going to play bishop d7. But the point is, after bishop d7, queen d7, there might be some problems with knight e5. Queen a4 is threatening, and okay, engine says that queen b5 is the move, and black is very much fine, but so is white. And I was considering during the live broadcast to play king f8, g6 and king g7, but actually king e7 maybe is even better, because now Levy is threatening to play queen a5, maybe knight e4, and apply pressure against the bishop on b5. So the bishop on b5 is actually pretty silly. So bishop d3 made sense to retreat from the harm's way. Queen a5, queen d2, bishop e6 was a good move. I really liked this part. And the best part is that Levy had amassed a considerable time advantage on the clock. As you can see, he has 1 hour and 12 minutes versus 43. So everything was going really well for him. And starting from this moment here, Levy started to burn a lot of time. I think he was simply not so familiar with the position. So he first played rook 8 to c8. Now this move was played after a 50-minute think. I think it should have been done faster to apply some pressure against the knight on c3. It's a very natural move. Rook h to c1, f to c1, c4 made sense because now the rook on f1 is quite disconnected from the game. I'm pretty sure that he also considered moves like rook h to d8, apply some pressure with knight e4, but it seems that white is always safe. And with the king on a7, I can't really imagine black asking white some very serious questions. So by the way, knight b3 also is a problem. So Levy played c4. This is a good move. And now the point is, after bishop c2, h6. Now that's a mistake. Now that's a move I quite didn't understand why he played it. I can only assume Levy quite didn't like knight g5 idea at some point. But I think that this position required some more concrete solutions. And I was wondering about knight e4. So the point is, after knight e4, if white takes it, d takes on e4, you see the queen on a5 protects the g5 square. Knight e5 is a suicide, it's now just trapped. You can do that. But I could imagine that Levy was a bit unsure how to continue here after knight e1. And during the broadcast, I also was not exactly convinced that this is really so great. But he could have continued, for example, with rook d8, which makes perfect sense. And the hardest part probably after knight c2 here is to pick up the idea that you could actually sacrifice the pawn. You play bishop d6 with the idea you want to play 5 or b5, establish very powerful control of the center. And if white takes on e4, you take it and you play c3. I thought this was a very interesting idea. You have very beautiful pieces here. Rook c8, this is a weakness. Maybe knight e4 makes sense. Rook c7, knight e6, rook d6, and even white is up a pawn. Rook c6 is a threat, that's a weakness. And there's a fair chance that actually black, because of his active pieces, is going to take over the game. So this was a very difficult decision to be played, and Levy didn't do it. So I think this knight e4 had to be played, and h6 was just hesitation from his part, not a good move. And now for some reason, Anai didn't want to play knight e5, f4, which I think made a lot of sense, like knight e5, rook d8, f4, queen f2, maybe queen g3 or g4, try to apply some pressure. And the downside of h6 is that black can never easily play f6, because now the g6 square is no longer controlled. That's why this h6 was not really a successful move. a3 was played, the straight happened. I mean, again, Levy spent some time trying to figure out should he play bishop d6 or bishop c3. So he took it, he played rook d8, and about here, white was starting to take over the game. So Levy was slightly in trouble. Knight e5, king f8, f3, white was pushing, and one of the critical moments arose here. So the knight on e5 could not be tolerated, so knight d7 was a good choice to trade it off. Knight d7, bishop d7, and here Anai missed an opportunity to solidify her advantage had she played either a4, not allowing the bishop trade, or even stronger rook b4. Rook b4, e4, white has the better pieces, black is pretty awkward, the bishop on d7 is not doing anything, so this was the golden chance for the Ecuadorian player to take over the game. Now what she did, she played e4, which maybe is not a bad move now, but the point is Levy got to trade his bad bishop. Take, rook f1, rook e7, and now suddenly out of the blue, the white players started to experience some problems to defend the pawn on e4. Because if you play rook e1, you draw the pawn on a3. If you play queen e3, you allow most like queen c2. There's also rook d2 e8 problem. So this is a strong center, but is it a strong center? So here white played rook f4, probably the step in the wrong direction. King g8, d5, another mistake, white wanted to play queen d4. And here Levy made a couple of very nice moves. He played f6, securing the blockade. He improved the queen, stopping also queen h6 idea, hitting the queen on g4. Rook f4, queen d6, rook g4. Again, queen h6 is a big threat. And this was a very, very nice idea. And here in the time scramble, you can see both of the players were about 1 minute on the clock with only 30 seconds increment, no second time control. King h1 had to be played, or queen f2 was the cautious move. Queen d4 was a big mistake by the Ecuadorian player. And you know why? Because here after queen d4, c takes on d4, these pawns are actually not strong. They're pretty weak. And here Levy had a golden chance, try to seal the deal, had he found the move g5. Very strong move. Now the idea is to play h5 and simply get the pawn on e4. I have no idea what white should do here even. Rook e1 allows f5, the rook on e1 is pinned. maybe rook b1 something, easy move b6, followed by h5, rook e4, rook d5, and this would have been GG, as they say, would have been a victory. But again, g5 is a bit difficult move to make. Now instead Levy played b5. I quite didn't like this move, and this is a move that Levy made with only 4 seconds on the clock, basically neglecting the center. Rook b1, a6, a4. So here white is trying to disrupt black's center. Also the pawn advancement at the queen side. And here c3 was a very big mistake by Levy. I think he had to continue with rook b7, push forward those pawns. But you can understand he was a bit concerned about not giving enough control of those central pawns, because if they're going to roll forward, they look scary, don't they? So he played c3. I think this was simply miscalculation, because after 8x on b5, 8x on b5, there was nothing wrong with rook b5 and rook c5. I'm not really sure what here Anai missed and what Levy missed. So here white played another move, rook g3, and now the best moment for Levy to win the game was probably rook c8. That's it. So rook c8, he could have done it. Protect the pawn. Rook b5 is impossible because of c2 and black just advances. And I'm not sure what here white can even do. Maybe some sort of a rook e3. b4 is the move. You're going to take on b4. c2 is promoting. c4, rook c4, b3. Black is slowly advancing. These pawns are bystanders. They're not doing anything. It would have been a victory. Now instead what happened, Levy played c2, and after this he no longer had a winning chance. Now here Anai was leading very good defense. Levy was trying to keep those pawns on the board. It was impossible to do it. And the final moment here, maybe this was a very smart attempt to keep the game within the winning chances, because rook c5 attempt the move to eliminate the pawn would have been a big mistake. Black plays b4, he gets the king closer, the rook on e4 now protects the pawn on b4. And I sensed the trap. She played rook c7 and now she played rook c5. Now the point is, after the trade, you couldn't really protect the pawn. Rook b7, c6, rook b6, c7, these pawns are traded, and this is just a theoretical draw. And maybe one more final chance that Levy had here is that after h3, I think he had very good practical chances if he had played g5. g5, king g6, try to double the rooks on the second rank. For example, okay, engine still says this is okay. For example, king h2, rook d2, rook g3. I think it's realistically that black could try to find a trade to trick white. The rook on g3 is pretty passive, h5, h4, f5, f4. With the rooks on the second rank, would give Levy some practical chances. So what happened is that he basically forced white to trade the pair of rooks. And after this, there was nothing to be done. The position was still pretty tricky. And there were a couple of moments when Levy had some practical chances, like he was trying to push g6 f5. So Anai was trying to figure out what's the best defense. Levy was putting up some very good pressure. And about here, Anai made the correct decision not to take on f5. And maybe here, this was the last moment. f4, maybe Levy could have delayed this move and played something like, instead of the check, go here. White could give a lot of checks, get a lot of checks here and here. But ultimately, I think there's a problem to make a progress. So Levy played an idea. His idea was to trap the pawn here. After the rook b5, check, 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 check. Now rook h2 suddenly becomes a thing. And yeah, the problem is that black can never activate the king, because if he starts to do it, white starts to give a lot of checks and these pawns become vulnerable. And the game actually finished pretty quickly. Here, king f6, quite unexpectedly, the game finished pretty quickly, and now he apparently offered the draw, and Levy accepted. So it was a overall very nice fighting game. Levy had about 2 moments to get winning chances. Technically, he was winning at some point, so the strategy was paying off. Unfortunately, in the time scramble, he missed those opportunities, but still, draw was quite a nice result.